the video. Okay, we know that the angle of elevation is the angle formed by a horizontal line, a line of sight to a point above the line. As you can see here, the horizontal line is the red line, and above it is how this man sees something above his head. And the angle of depression is the angle formed by a horizontal line and a line of sight to a point below the line. As you can see here, the young man on top of this building can see the car with an angle of depression through this horizontal deep blue line. And then if we decide to try to work on this kind of thing here, and this, I think we've done something like this before, so but I'm just gonna quickly recall something here. So Brian's kite is flying. So if the kite is somewhere here, and then Brian is somewhere here, and the angle of depression here and the angle of elevation is 70 degrees, and Brian is, the kite is 65 meters in the sky. So we want to know the distance as which this, the kite is from the ground, knowing very well that Brian is staying on the ground somewhere here. This is ground, okay? So we want to know the whole of this distance. Whereas we know this part of the distance, and we know that Brian, from the ground to the height of Brian is 1.2 meters, where his hand is rather 1.2 meters. Then this is the hypotenuse, this is the H hypotenuse, this is the adjacent side, and this is the opposite side, which is the X we're looking for. So since we have information about H, so we're gonna use sine. We're gonna take sine 70 to be equals to O. O is X, H is 65. So if you write this guy over 1, by cross multiplication, you have 1 times X being equals to 65 times sine 70. Then X is, if you put this in your calculator, it's going to be 61 meters. And then since from the ground to where Brian and is holding the kite, the cord is 1.2, so you're going to add 1.2 meters to it to get X being 62.2 meters. The next problem, from the airplane being here, you draw the horizontal line to it, and then the angle of depression here is 28. And the same angle is brought down here because, we have alternate interior angles, okay? And if someone from here could see a rock down here, so it means, and that from the height, from where the plane is to the rock, Mr. Isong, is that, the distance is 1,200 meters. So we now find the distance from Mr. Isong to the rock. The distance from Mr. Isong, sorry, from the plane to the rock. So if the plane is here, or the 1,200 is somewhere here. because 1200 above the ground. Okay, so if this is the opposite side, this is the hypotenuse, then you're gonna calculate h. So we're gonna use sine again by using sine 28, which is O over h. O this time around is 1200 and h is unknown. So you write this over 1, cross multiply. You're gonna have h sine 28 to be 1200 times 1, which remains 1200. Then you divide both sides by sine 28. Sine 28. Then h becomes 1200 by sine 28 is 2556 meters. So this is just what a student was, some of my students were asking me to quickly elaborate. So we're gonna quickly leave that. If you go back to the LMS page, please open the peer deck link. Can everybody help open this peer deck link, please? Peer deck link. And then let's try to see what is there. Let's solve the peer deck. The link, the title is properties of different quadrilaterals, okay? The first question says, which of the following is not a characteristic of all parallelograms? We know that parallelograms have 5 characteristics. The first one, opposite sides are congruent and parallel. So option B is right because it says opposite angles are congruent. Option D, opposite sides are congruent. That's right. And option A, diagonals bisect each other. That's right. D says diagonals are angle bisector. No. So C said diagonals are angle bisector. So C is wrong. As you can all see, C is wrong there. The next slide. Which of the following is not a characteristic of all parallelogram? We're still gonna base our knowledge on all the 5 attributes of parallelograms, which are parallel and congruent opposite sides. So opposite sides are congruent, D is right. C is also right, opposite sides are parallel. And then the opposite angles are also congruent, so B is right. And A says opposite angles are supplementary. No, A is wrong. A and B might look alike, but A is wrong because A says opposite angles are congruent, whereas we know that opposite angles are congruent, not supplementary. So if you are still on it, please make sure you touch the peer there because your participation there gonna give you at least 80% of the credit, and the Khan Academy gonna do the rest. So please, I want to see when I finish, I need to see your name on the peer deck doing something. I'm giving the answers now. So the C part said, the next question says, which of the following is not a characteristic of all parallelograms? A says the consecutive angles are supplementary. Yes, in a parallelogram, angles next to each other add up to 180, so they are supplementary. B said opposite angles are congruent. Yes, opposite angles are congruent. C, diagonals bisect each other. That's true. Diagonals are perpendicular. No, in a parallelogram, diagonals are not perpendicular. Okay, diagonals are only perpendicular in rhombuses and what? Squares. So the next slide, which of the following is a characteristic of all parallelogram? Again, Sarah, can you help us with number 1? This problem, this particular one.
What do you want me to do?
Yeah. On my screen here, it says which of the following is a characteristics of all parallelogram?
Diagonals bisect each other.
Okay. Diagonal bisect each other. Good. That's true. Diagonals are not congruent in a parallelogram. Diagonals are not angle bisectors. Diagonals are not perpendicular. Thank you very much. Avalon. Is Avalon there? Tyler, can you help us with this? Which of the following is not a special type of parallelogram? Okay, special type of parallelogram, we have rhombus, rectangle, and square. So isosceles trapezoid is not a special parallelogram. Thank you. Who sent the chart? Okay, Jayla, welcome back. Please make sure you open the pear deck. Opening it alone gives you 80 marks and the rest is done on Khan Academy. So the next slide, Oliver, what do you think we can do here? Which of the following is not a characteristic of all rectangles? Okay, diagonals are perpendicular. Okay, in a rectangle, consecutive angles are supplementary, opposite angles are congruent, diagonal bisect each other, but diagonals are not perpendicular. Okay, thank you. Tyler H, are you there? Which of the following is not a characteristic of all rectangles? Oh, A, diagonals are angle bisector. Yes, diagonals are congruent in a parallelogram, so A is not. Okay. In a rectangle, are diagonals not congruent? No, the diagonals, since the diagonals are congruent, so that means the diagonal bisect each other. If they bisect each other, then they cannot be parallel. Okay, so C is wrong, A is wrong. Which one again? You still have two options left, and one of the two is right. B, yes, in a rectangle, like any other parallelogram, diagonals are always, in a rectangle, diagonals are always congruent, okay? So the property of diagonals in a rectangle, diagonals are congruent and they bisect each other, like what we did yesterday, okay? Savannah? Is Savannah back home? Okay, can you answer this? Which of the following is not a characteristic of all rectangles?
4 congruent sides.
Okay, in a rectangle, all the sides are not congruent, okay? But all the angles are congruent. Diagonals definitely bisect each other and opposite angles are congruent. Okay, so B is the wrong answer here. Thank you. Sue, which of the following is not a characteristic of all rectangles? Sue?
B.
Yes, you said? Which
I
one
said
is
B.
B? In a
Yeah.
rectangle, opposite sides are congruent. So in a rectangle, opposite sides are congruent. So B is right. And they said which of the following is not. We are looking for the wrong answer here. B is right. So pick another one. Sue, are you there? You said?
A.
So if you have a rectangle this way, if this is a rectangle, you know, this side will be equals to this side. So this side will be equals to this side. And then the diagonal will bisect each other. See, diagonal here, diagonal here. They bisect each other. This equals to this, and this equals to this. So which means the diagonals bisect each other. So this is right. And the B you chose before, it says opposite sides are congruent. As you can see, this is equals to this, and this side left equals to right. So this is right. So let's go. You are left with C and D. Which one is wrong?
C.
Okay, as you can see here, the angle that is formed here is not right angle. So this is wrong. And this one has 4 congruent angles. As you can see, each of these angles is 90 degrees, okay? So the wrong answer is C here. Thank you. Who else is home? If you are home today, you want to work, please let me know. Angela. Angela, this is a rhombus. In a rhombus, opposite sides are congruent. Opposite sides are congruent, and each side measure the same, and the diagonals are perpendicular. So which one is the wrong answer here? Did the diagonal bisect each other here? Okay. Angela, B, is B true? Opposite sides are congruent. Is it true? Look, I have 1, 1, 1, 1. Does that mean our opposite side not congruent? Yes. If this side measures 6, this gonna measure 6, this gonna measure 6, this gonna measure 6. So opposite sides are congruent. Are diagonals perpendicular, Angela? Look at the diagonals, these 2 red lines. Do we have a little box here? Okay. So which one is the wrong answer? Is that D? Okay. Here in a rhombus, the four angles are not congruent, okay? And then which of the following is not a characteristics of all rhombi? A? Okay. A is true because in a rhombus, all the 4 sides are the same. B, the diagonal don't bisect each other. So B is wrong. D? Okay, because in D, then Tyler is right. The wrong answer is diagonals are congruent. So whereas diagonals are not congruent. Only diagonals are perpendicular. The sides are congruent and diagonals are angle bisector, okay? So D is wrong here. The next slide. Which one is the wrong answer here again? Okay. Consecutive angles are supplementary. A is right. In a rhombus, consecutive angles are supplementary. In a rhombus, opposite sides are parallel. In a rhombus, diagonal bisect each other. But in a rhombus, the 4 angles are not congruent. Only the 4 sides are congruent, okay? The next one. In a square, diagonals are congruent, which is right. B, diagonals bisect each other. And diagonal intersect at 45. Is that true? No. The diagonal always intersect at 90 degrees, okay? Because diagonals are perpendicular. And diagonals form four congruent right isosceles triangle. Let's see. Let me draw that to, if we have a square this way. Diagonal, diagonal. If this is a right angle, this are the same. So the first triangle here, this is isosceles right triangle. This is isosceles right triangle. This is isosceles right triangle. And this, the last one, isosceles right triangle. So this is right. So it forms four congruent right isosceles triangle. So C is the wrong answer here. Number 15. Which of the following group of quadrilateral have diagonals that are perpendicular? Please, class. We know in a rhombus, diagonals are perpendicular. And what again? Square. So here, only rhombus and square. In a rhombus and a square, the diagonals are always perpendicular, okay? 16. Which of these quadrilaterals have congruent diagonals? We know in a rectangle, the diagonals are congruent. And what again? Square. Okay, so only rectangles and square have congruent diagonals, okay? Rhombus does not have congruent diagonals. Parallelogram does not have congruent diagonals, okay? 117, which of the following group of quadrilateral have diagonals that are angle bisectors? Which one? Parallelogram do not have angle bisectors. You said D. Rhombus do not have angle bisector. Angle bisector means the angles are congruent, okay? So if the angles are congruent, which one? So this question 17 definitely looks like 16. In order to say congruent diagonals, you could have said angle bisectors, okay? Because angle bisectors mean when the diagonal passes through it, it cut the angle into two equal sides, okay? So which one? Rectangles and square, okay. Number 18 is about your opinion, and it matters a lot. And then if you go on Khan Academy, these are the things to do for today. Make sure you watch the video and then you solve all these problems that are enumerated here. So class, make sure you do the Khan Academy work very well. And if you have not done the pair deck, since we've reviewed everything, make sure you go through it again. That's what we have for ourselves today and nothing else. Do have a wonderful day and enjoy yourself. If you are not on my attendance, let me call again. Yasmin, Ben, is Ben here? Drew, Damon, Jade, is Johnson Jade there? Christian, is Christian here? Thailandese. So class, have a wonderful day. They're the same? Okay, I'm gonna correct it soon.